What's up, Duelists? I am here with another deck review. If you like these type of videos, consider subscribing to the channel, drop a like. This one is probably going to catch you off guard. I talked in one of my recent videos about all of the decks that I'm excited to play this month that have either been revamped by the ban list or are kind of coming out new, all the things like that. So when you turn on this video, the last thing you're probably expecting is to see Ancient Gear. But what I've realized is there's a lot of decks that I'm kind of just craving playing, that I've probably played in the past, I think I've had a lot of fun with. I know they're not tier 1 decks right now. I know they're not tier decks at all. I know they probably won't get you to King of Games, but sometimes you just gotta have fun too. So that's what I'm here to chat about today. So I'm calling this Ancient Gear Fusion Dragons. The reason I'm calling it that is because there's a version of this deck that really focuses on Ancient Gear Golems. This one is focused more on the dragons there, so hence the title. And I'll kind of walk through what we have here, and I'll put the deck list down below. But obviously, through the name, we have 3 Ancient Gear Reactor Dragons. Most of this deck is really easy to get just through 3 copies of the Structure deck, and then a few cards outside of that from other boxes. But for the most part, you can get it pretty simply. And then I just added 3 limited 3 traps just to modernize it a little bit and make it a little more competitive. But we have 3 of the Ancient Gear Reactor Dragons, so there's essentially 2 routes that this deck can play. There's first the Ancient Gear Reactor Dragon route. And both of these routes are supported by the deck list I have here. Now, we have 3 Gear Towns, 3 Ancient Gear Fortresses, and we also start with I think it's called Ancient Gear Castle due to the Middle Age Mechs skill. And the way this works is when you can destroy any of these cards, you can either summon an Ancient Gear card from your hand, monster that is, or from your deck or your graveyard. So you want to get one of these out in the field, and you want to destroy it. So very rare that you want to destroy one of your old either continuous spells or field spells, but that is the way this works here. And that's how you can summon them out. Now, you can do that through either double cyclone, which I'm having one of here because it's really nice when you go second. When you go first, it doesn't help you at all. But the other card that came with most quote-unquote recent support, which was not any time too recent, but much more recent than most of this deck was. We have 3 of these, so if you control no monsters, you can destroy you can target one card you control and destroy it. So you're going to target either Gear Town, Ancient Gear Fortress, or Castle, depending on what it is. These cards are going to be able to trigger their effect where you can summon, and then the catapult will allow you one more summon. You can also do that same effect when it's in your graveyard, so really, really powerful destroying mechanic, which is going to allow you to summon things as well. And all of that to get out, like I mentioned, Ancient Gear Reactor Dragon. Why I think this deck can still be effective, I don't think great, but at least effective at times, is because of all of its effects. So it has kind of a similar effect at times to Sulpha Cord, where when you're attacking, you can defer all opponent spell and trap cards and monster effects too, so everything, until the damage step. So they can't activate spells like to counter what you're doing. But also, when this card attacks, you can destroy a spell or trap card on the field. It can be face up or face down. So you can use it 2 ways. You can use it to destroy one of your cards. So if you have one of these out, but you still have a Gear Town or you still have a Fortress, you can destroy the Gear Town or the Fortress and then bring out another dragon or another card in general. That's really, really helpful because you can chain the summoning, or you just destroy your opponent's face downs or monsters in the Pendulum Zone. So pretty flexible with the meta today, given that Odd Eyes is still very, very common. So the dragon's very, very powerful. They also get a 300 attack point boost from Ancient Gear Fortress, which again we're getting from the skill of Middle Age Mechs here. And that works nicely, and that summarizes many of the cards that we have here. So we have our dragons, we have our catapults, we have our Gear Towns, double cyclone, fortresses. Fantastic. They get a bit of protection from Ancient Gear Fortress, so the turn that they're summoned, they can't be destroyed or targeted by card effects in general. So it only lasts 1 turn, but it can be very helpful because this deck is made to kind of end a duel very, very quickly. Now, I mentioned there's 2 routes. That is obviously one of them. We want to get our dragons out, but the other one that we can do in conjunction with that too is the fusion route. So we have 3 Ancient Gear Hunting Hounds. These were used a lot in Arc 5, which I got finished watching recently. But what it allows you to do is, first off, you summon it, you can inflict 300 damage to your opponent. Nice to have, but not game breaking by any means. But Once per turn, you can fusion summon an Ancient Gear monster from your extra deck using this card and other cards you have as material. So depending on how many cards you have is what you can pick there. So it has to be in the field, obviously, but if you have 2 cards, you can go into Howitzer. Howitzer, again, this isn't game breaking in itself, but it's a really good, first, if you're going first and you want to do something defensive, it's really good for that. Unaffected by other cards' effects, like one of my favorite lines in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! When you can get a monster out that has that. You can also inflict 500 damage to your opponent, so you chain these two together, that's 800 points, adding up pretty quickly. 20% of your opponent's starting life points. But further, if this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, so again, it's only way it can be destroyed is by battle, so we're requiring over 1800 attack points to do that, you can special summon 1 Ancient Gear monster from your deck. I just talked about the Reactor Dragons here, how powerful they are. That's great. But one step further, if we have 3 monsters total, so including our Hunting Hound and 2 more, we can go into Ancient Gear Megaton Golem. Very, very powerful. And the thing that catches your attention here, if this card leaves the if this face-up fusion summoned card in its owner's control leaves the field due to an opponent's card effect, you can special summon 1 Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem from your extra deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. So 3300 attack and defense on this, but if we go against something like Orcust, Ding sends it to the graveyard, voila, we bring out Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem, which is really the final boss of the whole deck here, which is kind of the back pocket play. I think the other route of the Reactor Dragon is primary, but this card is just tough. All of the same effects as the other ones, but on top of that, it's going to inflict piercing damage. So when you have 4400 attack, or it can be 4700 if we have our Ancient Gear Castle, if your opponent has any monsters in defense position, it's very likely you can end the duel because most monsters these days don't have a ton of defense points, or just attack in general, and going to make it very difficult for them to survive more than 1 turn. So very powerful, and this isn't like the only way you can play. If you're going this route, it's not the only thing you can do. You can still probably combine it with a Reactor Dragon or something like that. So the cards in this deck chain together really well. The effect that your opponent can't activate spells, trap, or monsters effects until the damage step is kind of timeless, where no matter what is going on in the meta, if your opponent can't activate their card effects, they're useless, and that's what this deck does here. Protection is the big challenge with this deck. It is fairly consistent. There are some turns where the only thing you're going to be able to get out is a Wyvern, where you have 1700 attack points, boosted up to 2000 often. This allows you to, take an Ancient Gear card from your deck to your hand, but if you can't do more than that, then you're probably in a bit of trouble. And if you can't get one of the limit 3 traps that'll protect you down as well, you could be setting yourself up to lose kind of following turn, but outside of that, a lot of fun to play. There's definitely potential. I've tested around against some meta decks right now, and I've beat them. So you want to have some fun playing Ancient Gear Fusion Dragons here. Last quickly thing I will mention is we have a couple extra cards in the extra deck. Cipher Blade Dragon. We would need all 3 of our Reactor Dragons, so you're very, very rarely going to play this, but it doesn't hurt to have it in, because we have, not a ton we're going to need with the extra deck, so might as well fill the slots. Same thing with Malevolence In. Very rare that we're going to fill up or have 2 level 4 monsters out, because Wyvern is the only 2 that really are going to apply there, but doesn't hurt to have in a card like that. And then same thing with Nightmare Phoenix. I think this should go in almost every extra deck these days anyway, so that rounds it out. But let me know what you think. Have you played this deck in the past? Would you consider playing it again now? And I'm going to be uploading some gameplay with it. Did reasonably well, so hope you enjoy.